Hello there, thank you for coming by PosterCentral.com's video blog today. I'm Pete Howard, and what a beauty, gorgeous masterpiece I have today. Boy, there's just no touching this one. This is just so much San Francisco psychedelic rock history in one poster. I just can't believe it. This is nothing less than the Can You Pass the Acid Test tour blank poster, which was used for just a few weeks in late '65 and early 1966, featuring the Grateful Dead, newly renamed from the Warlocks, at the Fillmore in January of 1966, with the venue information written in by Pigpen, vocalist and organist, of course, for the Grateful Dead. Just fabulous, you know, being the Fillmore, and what Pigpen wrote in is just amazing. He wrote in a lot of detail, the date, the time of the show, you know, the cross streets and everything. I'll get down to that part in just a moment. It's a very tall, thin poster, so it won't fit very well, of course, in the horizontal video screen you're looking at right here, but I will, of course, scan it from top to bottom, like I always do, and linger on that venue information. Now, this is known as the Norman Hartwig poster, sometimes known as Paul Foster designing it, or a collaborative effort of many. I'll get to that in a minute. And I've blogged a goldenrod so far, and I'm doing several others. They were made in white, goldenrod, and blue. Now, this sample is blue, or should I say was blue, but the sunshine has sort of turned it green a little bit, but on the back of this poster it's very much blue. So make no mistake, it's not like a color variant, it really is the blue sample. And of course this was printed as a square, and there was a line down the middle where you could cut it in half and put one half on top of the other half to create this vertical elongated poster, which is very eye-catching, be it a telephone pole or anywhere. Definitely part of its eye appeal. The tallest, thinnest poster, I think, in rock history, and it really, I hope, did its job and got a lot of people to pay attention to it. So you had, you know, what a bunch of participants. You know, if you saw this video, you know about the acid test. You had Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters, the Dead, just after switching again from the Warlocks name, all coalescing in San Francisco after some acid tests at outlying areas in late '65, such as Muir Beach and Palo Alto and so forth like that, and sort of a counterculture Big Bang, I guess you could call it, right? I mean, the Fillmore and the Dead and the acid tests and Kesey and the Pranksters. I mean, just a pop culture Big Bang, as I said. This was only the second organized rock concert, by the way, at the Fillmore Auditorium. December had Bill Graham's Mime Troupe 2 appeal, which sort of served as the first, even though neither one was really a rock concert per se. They were both happenings, multimedia things that had elements of, very important elements, I might add, of rock music. But you know, these acid tests were really a coming out of San Francisco's hippie and psychedelic counterculture, and it really exploded 2 weeks later at the Trips Fest at Longshoremen's Hall. So anyway, I've covered this this poster before. Let me give you a top to, not in blue though, so this is a first, and certainly not with this venue information, so I'll give you a bit of a top to bottom here, just as it's beautifully framed here with a lovely frame. And that's where the left half ends and the right half begins, and so it's halfway down the poster right there where you see that break in the middle, and then you get the names of, you know, people like Neil Cassidy and the Grateful Dead and so forth, Allen Ginsberg, and then we get down here, and then there it is, down as I can get up there, in the lower left-hand corner. Lo and behold, look at that, in Pigpen's hand. That's just amazing. And it says, of course, Fillmore Auditorium, Fillmore misspelled with just one L, Saturday, January 8, 9 o'clock until question mark, Fillmore and Gary, with Fillmore misspelled again, and then San Francisco. Now, the fact that it says San Francisco is really interesting, because anybody in the city pretty much knew where the Fillmore was, although did they? Because the Fillmore, as we were saying, hadn't been taken over yet by Bill Graham and wasn't a famous place yet. But the fact that we know this is Pigpen's copy of the acid test poster for the Fillmore, and of course Pigpen lived in Palo Alto at the time, and that's where the Dead pretty much formed, so it makes sense that, you know, San Francisco would sort of have to be singled out if this poster was indeed displayed in the Palo Alto area. So, one thing's for sure, wherever it was displayed indoors, because other than the bit of the fading from blue to green, it's in really nice condition and truly isn't weather beaten at all. So that's, you know, it's nice to find these in any condition, but it's really nice when you can find one in relatively clean condition. So Pigpen hung on to it, and word is he even had it at 710 in Ashbury Street, you know, where the Dead lived at the time and everything. And then when Pigpen passed away in 1973. His brother Kevin got this poster, and so that's the trace of Providence, and that's where the story comes from. And it's just, you know, it's just really beautiful and lovely to have this acid test thing from one of the dead. Now, Kevin, the brother himself, is now deceased, but the Providence is fully accounted for from that point period. So it's just, whew, I mean, Providence is, it's a huge added plus. It's not necessary. If you find something in an old barn, it's still great to find. But boy, when you got Providence from one of the acts on the poster, that's just really a really sweet home run. And the night itself, hello, the acid test at the Fillmore, oh my gosh, it's documented beautifully in Tom Wolfe's book, The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, a very famous book. In the middle of the Fillmore floor, you had all this electronic equipment stacked up, and there was just craziness everywhere, and you know, the cops tried to stop it at 2 a.m. and Mountain Girl, Kesey's girlfriend at the time, later Garcia's girlfriend, was up in the balcony sort of taunting the cops and anybody else, and then hiding, and nobody knew who was saying it, so that's pretty funny. But you know, interestingly, there was zero danger. It was just still very, very early in the scene, and there were no, you know, imposters or shysters really showing up yet, so that naivete and innocence really helps make it for this poster as well. Now, I've discussed the origin of this poster before. It's always interesting to touch on. I won't do it in every acid test blog, but this was designed in the fall of '65 by the Merry Pranksters, most commonly credited to Norman Hartwig, one of the pranksters, and that was the story for a long time. However, other names have come up, such as Paul Foster, and even a little bit perhaps Gretchen Fetchen, the slime queen. Those have been suggested with some evidence to back that up. So given this poster's, you know, it's really playful, isn't it, and all these crazy elements, and given the fact that, you know, the Merry Pranksters all collaborated on painting the bus, right, the further bus, probably the strongest story that I've heard surface to date, from not just from me, from those who have really studied it, is that this poster's origin, the design, was probably a collaborative effort that seems to make the most sense. It's so complex and diverse. So, you know, perhaps Hartwig was the point person on it, if you will, and he was the one assigned to get it printed. So maybe that's where part of his accreditation came from. But, you know, it's just, boy, I'll tell you, it's kind of funny, because usually with rock and roll and the pop culture and stuff, we sort of derisively say, oh, nobody remembers, man, they were all too stoned. But isn't it funny that, especially since LSD was legal and so new, that, you know, to say everyone was too stoned to remember, it's a positive when it comes to acid tests and this particular culture and this poster. That's okay. You were supposed to be flying high on LSD. If you weren't, you were probably, you know, well, you were obviously a straight, but, you know, that's just part of the mystery behind these posters, is how, you know, how little we really know about them. LSD being totally still legal, and actually was introduced to the world by the U.S. government, I should say introduced to America. So everybody was supposed to be higher than kites, and they certainly were at the Fillmore that night. It's just easy to understand their vague recollections. And don't forget the prankster ethos, right? The first prankster rule is that nothing lasts. Everything's just discarded and left behind. And that was certainly true with the posters that advertised the events, and so that's why it's tough to run across these, and so sweet when you do. Extra nice when it's all, you know, cut and put together and the venue information filled in. And then incredible when it's filled into the Fillmore Auditorium in Pigpen's hand, a founding member of the Warlocks, the Grateful Dead, whatever, you know, the Dead. So just spectacular. Might be my favorite psychedelic poster of all time, this particular specimen. This right here I'm holding in my hand. It's just wonderful. So a psychedelic magical history tour. I hope you enjoyed it. Great fun showing you. And thanks for coming by. It won't be as good next time. I promise the next 10 won't be as good as this, but I'll have something really neat to show you next time as well. So thanks a lot. Take care and talk to you then. Bye-bye.